Wentz steps up. Here comes the rush. He is going deep, and it is caught. And in for a touchdown, Deshaun Jackson.
Give the people what they want.
The big surprise on Tuesday is not that Jalen Hurts is the starting quarterback against the Saints. The big surprise is that the Eagles actually announced it before we started recording this podcast.
Yeah, I think Howie got confused. He probably thought this is a 9 o'clock podcast day, 9 in the morning, and he was probably thinking, all right, that's done, that's posted, I can announce it now. Really just another in a series of miscalculations by Howie.
It is. This is the most damning one yet. This is the Eagle Eye Podcast presented by Nissan with Reuben Frank. I'm Dave Zangaro. Obviously, the big story today, the only story today, Jalen Hurts, as we kind of suspected, will be the starter against the Saints. On Sunday, Carson Wentz to the bench. I'm assuming he'll be the backup quarterback in this game. Look, it's not surprising given the situation that the Eagles are in right now and given the situation the quarterbacks are in. But if you take a step back, you go, how the hell did we get here?
Yeah, it's a mystery. I think like with anything, there's no one thing. I think it was just kind of a perfect storm of circumstances that got us here. Man, if you had told me 3 months ago that this would happen, I mean, I think one of my predictions for this year was the Eagles would have a top 10 offense. You know, I just thought this thing was going to be. I thought Miles was going to take a big step, and Rager was going to be, producing consistently. You know, you figure Ertz and Goddard doing their thing. I thought Carson was going to have a really big year. And why wouldn't you think that? You know, I mean, everything was in place. I mean, the offensive line, I mean, there was a point where before the injury started, before Barrett Brooks got hurt, we thought they were going to have a really, really good O-line. So the last thing, I think if you gave me 100 predictions, Carson getting benched, I mean, he would have to be really, really bad to be benched. You have a contract and a pedigree like Carson. If you're average, you're not getting benched. You have to really, really stink it up, and he's done that, and he's done it consistently, and he's done it week after week with really no exceptions. And here we are. It's as you know, I've been doing this a long time. I've seen Randall get benched, I've seen Donovan get benched, but in both cases, it wasn't out of the blue. It was something that you kind of saw it coming. But Carson this year. I mean, this wasn't a gradual decline. I mean, this was, he was really good last year, and he was great at the end of the year. This is just plunged down to this level. It's been a crazy season, and I think it's a tough fix because so many things go into it. But I do think, and I know Carson's defenders are saying, well, the O-line this and the receivers that. There have been a lot of quarterbacks that have had bad offensive lines and a lot of quarterbacks that haven't had great weapons, including Carson at times in his career. And, the elite ones work their way out of it, and the decent ones at least give you a fighting chance. I mean, Carson has, I think is as much of a problem as the O-line and the weapons and the play calling. So I think there's a narrative out there that he's just a victim of circumstances and they didn't do anything to help him. And I think that's true to an extent. But I also think he's not blameless in all this. And there have been so many times where he has had a good pocket and he has had open receivers and he has had chances to make plays and he just hasn't done it. And that's why he's benched.
Yeah, and the margin for error in this season, as we know, is very slim. And if you're a franchise quarterback, you have to be the guy to kind of increase that, right? You have to be the guy who can kind of help cover up those other flaws. And last year he did it, That's the most shocking part of this to me is like last year we watched him kind of drag a beaten up team into the playoffs. And after you see that, you think, well, this guy is an elite quarterback. He played at that level with a bunch of practice squad guys. And now this year they asked him to do it again. And maybe that's unfair, but that's what he has to be able to do. That's what they're paying him to do. I think you're right. I mean, I think part of it is he's a little bit of a victim of the circumstances. I think that's fair, but it doesn't absolve him of blame. I mean, whenever there's a team this bad, the blame game happens. What percentage is this and that? And it's never just one or the other. It's never just one thing. It's a lot of things that have gone into this crap soup. And he's a big reason for it. I mean, he really is. He's played terribly this year. The interceptions, and it's not even just the turnovers were bad for a while, but it's the lack of plays. You can turn the ball over if you make plays. We haven't seen him make plays this year. He hasn't done it. He looks completely lost. And that's why, to me, this was a no-brainer for this week. You have to give him a break, and you have to find out what you have in Jalen Hurts. And you can accomplish both of those things. I understand that it was a tough decision for Doug because Carson's his guy. They've been here together for 5 years, but he had to. He had no choice.
He had no choice. And, Jalen Hurts almost seems like an afterthought in this whole thing. It's it could have been Nate Sudfeld. It could have been Kyle Oleta or Clayton Thorson. I mean, who knows? And I think we're assuming Carson will be number 2. You never know with these things. I mean, Doug might be so set on Carson's got to get away from this that if Hurts gets nicked up or something, he doesn't want Carson to play. He might just want him to be inactive, and Suggs can be number 2. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe he'll tell us. Maybe he won't. Probably won't. But I do feel like it's more about Carson than about Jalen Hurts. But it will be interesting to see him over a full game. He'll get the reps starting tomorrow, starting Wednesday. He'll get the full load of reps with the ones, and we'll see what he brings to the table. I think there's a lot of unfair things said about him on Sunday after the Packers game. This is his first game ever. He hadn't even played in a preseason game, and people are nitpicking over, well, he only had the one good drive. I mean, I don't exactly know what people are expecting. You come in and make your NFL debut as far as getting, series and a series and series, and you lead a touchdown drive. You convert a 4th and 18. You hit a 32-yard pass to a rookie who hasn't caught a pass longer than 18 yards since opening day. You get the team in the end zone. You throw a terrific touchdown, really nice throw. And people are like, oh, yeah, well, the Packers were playing a soft zone. I mean, there was good coverage on those 2 passes. And they're 2 passes that Carson hasn't made in a month and a half.
At least not consistently.
He hasn't completed a 30-yarder to a wide receiver in 5 weeks. Rager, in his first career playing time, did it twice in the span of 3 series. So, yeah, he did some things. Now, I'm not under any illusions that he came in and was Joe Montana here, but at least he brought some juice to the proceedings, and he earned some playing time. And let's see what he does. I don't know if he's going to go out there. They might get shut out. He might be terrible, but it can't be any worse than what it's been. And it's a tough ask for him. I mean, the Saints defense is number 1 in points and yards allowed, number 2 in points allowed. They're tough and physical. You got Malcolm Jenkins back there, knows every trick in the book, playing a 21-year-old rookie making his first career start. That's not an easy task, but it'll be interesting to see how he handles it, and it can only help Carson to sit. You just think of running into a brick wall over and over and over. At some point, you just have to stop running to the wall and figure out something different. And that's what it's like watching Carson play right now. It's like, early in the year, I think we both this is going to be. And
that analogy, is he running into the wall, or are we running into the wall watching it?
No, just almost like starting him every week was running into the brick wall. So it was like Doug and Carson, like the decision to keep playing him. I think early in the year, we both kind of thought, this is the week Carson breaks out of it. All right, they're playing Dallas. Dallas has a terrible defense. Carson, he'll bust out of it. Or, they're playing the Giants. Carson he'll break out of it. It's never happened. And, yeah, you just get the feeling it's not going to change. And I think we got to the point after 12 games where it was apparent that running him out there on Sundays every 7 days is not the answer. And that's why he'll sit.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Doug Peterson hasn't named Jalen Hurts the starter for the rest of the season. I would imagine if he plays halfway decent in this game, they're going to have to roll with him here. It's interesting, though, because, look, this season's a lost season. They're not making the playoffs. Unless, if they do, then it's because Jalen Hurts plays out of his mind,
right,
and then they have a whole nother set of problems. What's in the best interest of this team for the rest of these 4 games? Because, look, financially, they're still heavily invested in Carson Wentz. And if they hadn't drafted a quarterback in the second round, we might be looking at this whole situation very differently right now. But if you're looking from above and you're not Doug Peterson trying to save his job, if you're looking at maybe as the overseer of this team, if you're Jeff Lurie or maybe even a fan perspective, what's the best case scenario in these 4 games?
Get a 4 to 6 draft pick. I think that's the best thing this team can do is
no, but I mean from the perspective of the quarterback position. The best thing
that can happen is for Carson to be Carson again. I mean, that's this team's best hope to do anything in the next several years is to do with Carson. And that's not a knock on Jalen Hurts. I just think the reality is he gives you the best chance. Carson at his best gives you the best chance to be an elite team. And so they have to figure out how you get your best chance to make that happen. And I think the best way to start that process is to sit him right now, and then it's to, start the process of remaking him, whether it's with Doug, whether Howie's involved, whether there's a new GM, new coach. You've got to get him right. Like you said, they have a financial investment. I mean, they could conceivably, cut him after next year, and it wouldn't kill them under the cap. But I mean, gosh, you just paid the guy this kind of money. You used a second pick in the draft on him. He's been an MVP candidate.
And it was more than the second pick in the draft. I mean, it was a ton of draft capital to get that pick.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of those picks have helped, create the Cleveland Browns that we're seeing right now, who are a pretty good team. But the important thing is getting him on the right track. And I think everything that this team does has to be with that in mind.
So do you want to see Carson play the rest of the season?
No.
Do you want to?
No, I don't think that benefits anybody. I think you just play Jalen Hurts. I think that it's a reclamation project that has to begin in the off season. The first question is who's going to be his coach. And the second question is who's going to be his position coach. And, I think if they come back with the same coaching staff and the same offensive coach structure and the same people and the same car, I don't think anything's going to really change. So I think you really have to figure out why this happened and what you can do to change it. And I think that's the biggest question facing this team this offseason.
Yeah. And honestly, a lot of this is going to have to come down on Carson Wentz too. I don't think the Eagles can fix Carson Wentz if he doesn't do it on his own, because just by the structure of the off seasons now, I mean, he's going to be on his own after the season's over. It's not like he's going to be in the building every day working with whoever the hell the coach is. I mean, he's going to have to do this on his own, whether he goes back to the quarterback's coach he used a few years ago, whether he finds a new quarterback's coach. A lot of this is going to be on him. And sure, he can talk to the Eagles about how to set up this plan. But if we're talking about an off-season reclamation project, the Eagles can't really do it for him.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know what shape this offseason is going to take. I would think there'll be some sort of OTAs, I would guess. We don't really know. I mean,
yeah, but that doesn't come until May.
Yeah.
And even then, they're really limited workouts.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, you're right. It's. I think there's certainly an element of accountability there for him. I don't know. I get the sense he doesn't have any idea what's going on. I mean, so he's going to need help in that process, and I think it would be a mistake to just say, Carson, you're off on your own. It's January 3rd. We'll see you in May. I think it's going to start with who the coach is, and I think you're going to need a fresh voice in here, whether it's the head coach or offensive coordinator or quarterback's coach. I don't think the Doug Press Taylor thing is working, and I think that's a big part of why we're where we're at. So, I don't think just sending Carson home and saying go work on your game is going to be enough. I mean, it's not going to work.
Yeah, but the problem is, on January 3rd or whatever day cleanout day is going to be, when they talk to him, they might not know what their coaching situation looks like. So there's a lot of unknowns. I did want to ask you, with Jalen Hurts playing his last 4 games, is at what level would he have to play for this to become a real long-term quarterback controversy?
Yeah, it's a great question. I don't know if I could quantify it, but I think we'll know when we see it. I think you would look for a certain consistency over these next 4 games. Gosh, I mean, I liked his confidence. I thought he showed a lot of confidence out there. You look for the comfort level. I think if we go into the offseason thinking, I don't know who the quarterback should be, I think we'll know. Does if he plays better than Carson, if he produces, if he puts up bigger numbers, more than 17 points a game, more than 160 passing yards or whatever Carson's averaging over the last, we'll know if he's getting the ball down the field, if he's converting third and eights with his legs, if there's a comfort level there. And I think if we see progress over these last 4 games, if we see him getting better, I think all those things will add up. I think it's going to be hard for him. I think it's, because all the things that hurt Carson are still in place. I mean, but I think if you see the people around him start to get better, then I think there'll be something there. I think the last thing they need is, going into the season and having an open competition. I don't think that really benefits anybody. But I think we'll know. I think when the season's over, January 3rd, we'll be able to sit here on the podcast and know whether Jalen Hurts has earned a shot at the job for next year. Hey, 'tis the season to thrill at the Nissan year-end sales event. Get in, get out, and experience the most riveting ride of the year in a brand new Nissan. These savings on Nissan's lineup are sure to raise your pulse.
Joining us now on the Eagle Eye Podcast, our good buddy Barrett Brooks. Barrett, how you doing, man?
Good. How's it going today, man?
What's up, Barrett?
Well, there's nothing to talk about except for the quarterback change and the whole future of the franchise being in limbo. Just your initial reaction to the news that Jalen Hurts is going to start on Sunday.
Very, very much so surprised that he made this move, especially made this move this early. And particularly, all right, you changed the quarterback position, but did you change everything else around the quarterback position to make sure that this young guy comes in and he's successful? The offensive line hasn't changed. They're still going to be the same guys that got Carson's head knocked off when he was playing. They're still the same receivers that don't have the ability right now to get open at all times. And, play calling, is it going to be the same as it was? Those are all things that are not changing, but you are making a quarterback change. So to me, it just didn't make sense at this point to do it. It's kind of late in the season. I understand you want to see what this kid can do, but at this point, I can't see him having much success at this point in the season, and understanding that you didn't change anything else, you just changed the quarterback.
What about the notion of helping Carson by just getting him out of there, letting him catch his breath, step back a little bit, hold the clipboard, see the game from a different perspective? You think there's some value in that? I
do, but it's different with the quarterback position. I can see you doing it to another position. I had it done to me when I was here in Philadelphia. They made me I didn't start the game, but then I eventually got in after the second series. And, it helped to an extent that I didn't want to get benched anymore. So, I made sure that I played better after that. But from a sense that, you're asking a competitor like Carson, who's already sensitive. I think he's sensitive simply the fact that, we've had to make adjustments to the quarterback position as far as Nick Foles and things of that nature. So I don't know how he bounces back from this, or if he's, how he's going to approach this whole situation. It's the first time he's ever got benched from a competitive standpoint of him not producing. He may have got a bench because of an injury, but not because of performance.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's probably the first time in his life he's dealt with this. It's, he's kind of taken on this bigger leadership role as his career has progressed. Kind of wondering how you think this is playing in the locker room right now. I mean, this is as significant of a change as they can make aside from changing the head coach. What do you think's going on in the locker room right now?
Well, first of all, the team knows that nobody's, bulletproof. I mean, if they can change Carson, they can change anybody. That's number one. So everybody's play should get better with the expectation that, this could happen to you. That's number one. Number two, it might give the team the same effect that it had for, them when eventually Hurts came into the game. You know, it lit a fuse. You know, it got guys playing harder, playing faster, doing more to try to win the game. And, you know, I think it helps in that aspect of it, you know, giving them a chance to you know, kind of light a fuse underneath of some people. But at the end of the day, you know, like I said, is that just the only change that's going to happen? Are we going to change our play calling? Who was the play caller during the day? I don't even know who the play caller was. But I know in that locker room, you know, guys are thinking, hey, you know, if this guy gives us a chance, let's go ahead and give an opportunity to do it. You know, our allegiance is who's starting the game, not necessarily the player, but position. The allegiance is to the position.
What's the biggest thing Doug Peterson could do for Jalen Hurts?
Biggest thing is that he protects him. He's going to have to protect him, you know, and what I mean by protection, having fast developing plays, rolling them out and let him use his athletic talent, making sure they don't put him behind an offensive line, you know, 7-step drops on plays and you know, put them in harm's way. You know, those are things that you can change, you know, from a play, you know, developing standpoint that you can help out a young guy. They should have did the same thing for Carson. They should have put him in a position where either had quicker throws, rolled him out a little bit, run different protections. There are different protections you can run. You know, play action protections, which is like solid protection, where you keep a lot more guys in, help with the protection, and, you know, and use that to push the ball down the field. Or they could have run waggle protections where they pull the backside guard and have him go out with hit Carson, you know, and almost like a convoy type of situation where he'll, you know, block anything that comes at him and give him a little time to push the ball down the field. They could have ran boot protections. They could have done things like run the ball. How about that? Something as simple as running the ball.
Never heard of it.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I mean, we're breaking records as far as, you know, not running the ball. I mean, that's not a record I want to break. I don't want to take precedence in a team that, you know, doesn't even try to run the ball. I mean, you see all these teams we played the last couple of weeks who established the run, kept running until they established the run, and then later on in the game, see how it helped your passing game because you did that. Those are all things that I didn't see from a play calling standpoint from anybody, whether it was, you know, Press Taylor or the head coach. So, I mean, there's ways to protect them by doing those little things, but are they going to do it?
Yeah, that's a good question. And, you know, it's funny because we've seen Carson Wentz get sacked 50 times in 12 games. It's unbelievable. And a lot of that, look, it's the O-line hasn't played well, but I think it's fair to say a lot of those sacks are on him. Jalen Hurts is interesting because he has, you know, he's a little more athletic. He has the ability to escape from that pressure. Because of that, do you think that we might see those sack numbers go down? He might look better protected just because he's able to escape a little bit more than Carson?
That's definitely a possibility. You know, what Jalen Hurts will bring to the defense is he'll make sure that they play assignment correct. He'll make sure that they don't crash down and don't, you know, stay in their rush lanes. Make sure that they do things fundamentally more sound because at any point he's a good enough athlete that he can break, he can go. Kind of like, you know, what you saw from Taysom Hill and how they ran the offense with him. They had it was probably like a 3rd and 17. He scrambled out the pocket and took it for like 21 yards. Those are the type of things, that dynamic play that he can do, you know, because he's such a good athlete. And, you know, say what you want to say. The kid has an arm, too. He has a gun. And the big thing about him, he's ready to pull it right now. He's not scared to throw it up there and give guys an opportunity, a real opportunity instead of just throwing it up there, but a real opportunity to try to make a play, a la the Jalen Reagor play. So I think, you know, it's one of those things where, all right, put me in the game, coach, see what I can do. Now they're going to give him the reins. Let's see how this works out. You know, I don't know if it's going to necessarily have a positive effect, but I will say this, the change is something that this team probably needs, and it might make people react in a more positive manner, and they might play better because of it.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see what the game plan looks like if Doug finally, you know, realizes that if you have a 22-year-old quarterback who's never started a game before going up against a top 5 defense in the league, that maybe getting a running game going would help the kid a little bit.
Drop back 60 times.
I mean, how surprised would you be if, you know, Hurts' final numbers are like, you know, 23 for 47, you know, for 288 yards. and Miles is 3 for 11.
You know what? There's
But he would be surprised at this point. But the best thing he can do for Jalen Hurts is establish a running game. And I'll tell you what, if it's if Miles gets 8 yards on his first 3 carries, that doesn't mean you give up on the running game for the rest of the day. And if it means getting some Jordan Howard in there, getting some Boston Scott in there, whatever it is, Jason Huntley, I don't care. He's got to establish it and stick with it. And otherwise, it's not fair to the kid. Because that's Saints. I mean, that's Saints front, man. They'll come after you, and they got a really tough, aggressive defense. And if he just leaves him out there as a sitting duck, I mean, he's not doing him any favors. It's bad enough when he does it to Carson, but a 22-year-old kid making his first NFL start? Are you kidding me?
You're right. You said that.
To use Dave's phrase, that would be coaching malpractice.
Yeah, you're right, man, and that makes a difference, because it's bad enough that he does it to Carson. But I mean, like I said, when you don't change everything else, we just change quarterback position. I don't want to have the same. I don't want to have the same thing that happened to David Carr, where they put him out there with a team that wasn't ready to play him. The offensive line was terrible, and at this point, we have to say our offensive line is terrible. They don't protect anybody, and if you don't establish a run, the bad thing about what you said, Rube, was how surprised would I be if he goes out, if we come out this with, if he goes 22 for 47 and, you look back and you have Miles Sanders, he goes 8 for like maybe 25 or 30, I would not be surprised if that happened. And that's a problem. I would not be surprised if that happened because it'll be status quo. That's exactly what he does. The surprising thing is if he goes out there and he's 21 for 32, Miles Sanders has 20 carries. Everybody else splits up maybe 15 carries between the rest of the running backs. That'll be an eye-shocking surprise. In fact, I would be totally blown away if something like that happens, as opposed to, the previous statement. And that's the realistic point of view that I have, because that's just not what this team does.
Yeah, and let's keep an eye on the Jalen Hurts runs too, because it could skew the numbers and it could look like they ran the ball more than they did, because he's going to probably scramble on a few dropbacks and it'll kind of lean that way a little bit more than it might actually. Barrett, do you think no matter what, Jalen Hurts should start these last 4 games, or do you think there's a situation where if he struggles, you can go back to Carson this year?
I think you go back to Carson. The biggest thing that I know this organization is scared to death of, from the coaching staff to the front office, the GM and everything else, is what if this kid does good? What type of controversy would you have here in Philadelphia where you have a young kid that's playing well and you're forced not to bench him, and then you got over $108 million guaranteed sitting on the bench and not playing? That's the biggest fear that I know that this team, everybody in the organization is having right now. And, that's a possibility, that may happen, I mean, we've seen it happen before, it just so happened it turned out to be Tom Brady that, took the reins. But, at the end of the day, this kid might have some success, and he's a good enough player. He's adapted to every situation he's been put in from college to now. Who's to say he doesn't adapt and plays better? I just need to see something from this team, some type of life. At this point, I see 2 things happen. This, the most basic human instinct is to fight or fly when your back's against the wall. What is this team going to do? Who's going to do what? Is this team going to fight, or this team already packed up and ready to go once the final gun sounds at the end of the season and give up on this season? I don't mind a 5th pick in the draft, but I do mind how my Eagles are portrayed and how they go out and finish the season out, and that's just basically what I'm thinking right now. What direction is this team going to go?
I think this team has played hard. I think that
yes.
Been there all along, which, that says something about Doug and the coaching staff. I just don't think they're good enough. They don't have any good players.
Right.
But, they have leadership. I think when you have guys like Kelsey and BG and Fletch, certainly they're not going to let guys, go out there and dog it. But, they're not getting blown out. So there's that. But they're just not very good. So I'm not concerned about that. I think these last 4 games they're going to play hard, and they're going to give the same effort that they've been giving. We had that little I did that Seth Joyner podcast a few weeks ago, and he was saying the Eagles are going to lose out. That was coming off that was going into the Browns game. I was like, they're going to beat somebody at some point. They're going to win a game. I'm starting to wonder now.
Right,
Maybe
I was on it. Yeah, I was on that 3-13 team, Rube. You covered me on the 3-13 team, and I can remember guys not necessarily giving up, but I saw guys playing hard, but they were playing hard for all the wrong reasons. They were playing hard because they were interviewing for 31 other teams. They understood that they had to get good tape out there, which led to a lot of freestyling and doing what you wanted to do as opposed to being in a team and a team concept. Everybody knew the writing was on the wall. Coach Rose knew he was out of there. Everybody in the staff knew they were out of there. I was out of there also. But, I can't see this team doing the same thing because I think they still respect Doug enough and they're still fighting for Doug. It's just they don't have, it's like having lemonade, having lemons, but you're being told by the front office, hey, take these lemons I'm giving you and make some lemonade. But then you forget to give them, you don't give them water and you don't give them sugar. You just give them lemons. How do you go out and you make a team with that? And then I really feel as though that's what Doug is going up against right now.
I want some lemonade now.
I got some
ice. You have some lemonade? Oh, yeah, iced tea. All right, Barrett, we appreciate your time, man. It's been a wild season, and we'll talk to you again next week.
Thanks, man. It makes the job easier for us, doesn't it? Later, guys. Have a good one now.
If you're a football fan, you need to check out this new game, Sunday Night 7, on the NBC Sports Predictor app. No reason not to play. It's totally free, and it's got $2 million in guaranteed cash prizes this season with $100,000 up for grabs every week. All you have to do is make 7 predictions about what's going to happen on Sunday Night Football for your chance to win some serious money. Download the NBC Sports Predictor app or head to NBCSports.com/predictor to make your Sunday Night 7 picks.
Before this season, if you were to tell me Jalen Hurts was going to start a game in December, I would have been like, okay, yeah, I can see that happening, but never for this reason. I think, when they drafted Jalen Hurts, we all kind of saw it. We didn't like the pick. We didn't understand the pick, but we saw it as insurance for if the starter got hurt. I don't know if anyone foresaw this coming.
No, how could you? Why would
you? Even the and there's a group of Carson haters, but even those people would have admitted that he was at least an average quarterback. I don't think anyone saw this scenario playing out, which really puts the entire franchise in a really weird spot.
The whole thing is just there's so many layers to the weirdness, and I wonder if they had to do it all over again, if they would just go nowhere near Jalen Hurts, because, it just opened up such a can of worms. And it's almost at the point where if organizationally, what are you going to do? Hope that he plays poorly? Because you've got so much invested in Carson Wentz. And, maybe that's a reason not to do this. But, if he does play well, if he plays really well, I guess it's good that he's a good player, but what does that mean? Now you're going to have this thing where,
yeah, what cost?
Yeah, because if he's the starter next year, if he plays well enough these 4 games to earn the start on opening day next year, have you completely lost Carson at that point? You're going to pay him, what is it, 30? What's his base next year? $35 million or whatever his cap number is to be a backup?
It'd be hard to do, and you would think they'd want to lean Carson in every possible scenario. And look, we haven't spent a lot of time talking about a trade. It's possible, right? It's not impossible to trade Carson Wentz, but there's a really short list of teams that would do it, I think. And look, I understand that people are going to look at Indianapolis and say, get him back with Frank Reich. And that makes some sense, but they see this too. They're seeing this guy play at this poor of a level through 12 games. They'd have to take on I mean, you'd have to trade him for almost nothing just to get rid of the salary. And the Colts might want you to help pay that. But if you're the Eagles, you're not going to help pay that because that's why you'd want to get rid of him. Yeah, the whole thing is really strange. And another layer to this is Doug Peterson is coaching for his job right now. If Jalen Hurts plays well, at least Doug can kind of go, see, it wasn't me.
Yeah.
It was the quarterback. I look what I did with the other quarterback. So that's another layer to this whole thing.
Yeah, and I think that might have been some of his motivation to make a change, because I think if nothing changes over these next 4 weeks, I think he's gone. I just think that. So if he's convinced that running Carson out there these next 4 games isn't going to improve anything, then why not? Why not? You don't have many cards left if you're Doug Peterson. Why not play that one? At least if Jalen Hurts shows some signs of life, if all of a sudden the O-line looks a little better, if the receivers all of a sudden get more involved and it looks like, it would answer a lot of questions. It would certainly narrow the who's to blame here. And if he doesn't play well, then he's no worse off than he was before. As far as the Colts thing, I mean, Phillip Rivers is having a good year. I mean, I don't know if has he announced that he's going to retire after the season? I mean, he's certainly playing a lot better than Carson is. If I'm the Colts, I'm not sure that's the switch I want to make. I'm just looking here. He's got 18 touchdowns, 9 picks, 3,200 yards, 68% completion, 96 passer rating, and they're 8-4. I mean, so you're going to sit there and say, well, we're going to get rid of him and bring in a guy who got benched for a 22-year-old rookie who's never played? I don't know. I'm not the Colts, but I can't imagine that. I don't think Phillip Rivers is in any hurry to retire, so that might be an obvious place. I don't think there's a whole lot of other places. And I think if you're another team and you see the decline here, I'm not sure that's something you want to take on. I think he might have to play better here to really have any value. And, gosh, you're going to take a guy –
if he plays better here, they're keeping him.
Yeah, but I mean, if he just shows some signs of life, but say Hurts plays great, I don't know. I mean, there will be preseason games next year, I would think. And that might help sort some of this out. But, God, it would be embarrassing to trade a guy that you just 4 years ago used the second pick on and traded.
And then, God forbid, he ends up recovering.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, whatever happens, it's going to be embarrassing for the Eagles unless they get him right. And that's the answer to everything is they've just got to make that the organization's only priority this offseason. Not only, but biggest is identify the issues and try to fix them. I don't know if they can be fixed.
Yeah, but then you get into a situation where if the head coach isn't back, then Jeffrey's hiring a new head coach. We don't know if Howie will be a part of that decision, if he's still going to be here. So now you might be in a situation where you're hiring your next head coach with a franchise quarterback already in place who struggled. So are you hiring your next coach to fix the quarterback? I mean, and are you bringing in possibly a new GM and saying, here's this broken quarterback, here's the new head coach that we're bringing in to fix the quarterback? There's a lot of, like we've said, there's a lot of layers to that part of it too. I mean, if you're stuck with Carson Wentz, hey, a lot of head coaches want to bring in their guy. A lot of head coaches want their quarterback. It's what we've talked about with Doug Peterson and Carson Wentz. It's how they're married. They're connected. Their success is tied to one another. So if you're going to bring in another head coach and say, sorry, here's your quarterback. We paid him $100 million. Good luck.
Yeah, but that coach would also know that if it's a disaster, you could move on from him after that first year. And I think if I'm a head coach who's a quarterback guy, an offensive coach, like most head coaches really are these days, they're quarterback coach, offensive coordinator, head coach.
And I think we understand that if the Eagles hire another head coach, it's going to be an offensive coach.
Yeah, I mean, Jeff pretty much said that. Jeff Lurie pretty much said, I'm never going to hire a defensive coach again. I think he said that during the last coaching search. But I think if I'm that guy, I would embrace that challenge. I think, I've seen Carson Wentz play at an elite level, And I believe I'm the guy who can get him back there. I think I would feel that way. As long as I knew that physically he was okay, that, he was physically the same guy he was before this season, I would feel like I can get him back playing at that elite level because of the confidence I have in myself as a coach, as a quarterback guru. And if it doesn't work out, cap wise, you can cut him after 2021 and, or trade him or whatever it is. It's a lot more realistic to do that after next year than now. So I would feel like I'd want that challenge. People always say, nobody's going to want to coach that team. They were 2-14. I mean, that's the team I would want to coach, so I could kind of be the guy that turns their season around, turns their direction around as a franchise. If you have that kind of confidence in yourself as a coach, which you would want, I think they would embrace it. You see Carson as what a challenge. It's like, all right, this guy for a 3-year period threw 81 touchdowns and 21 interceptions. I mean, that's elite level stuff. I can get him back there. Let's start doing it. And you have from January 15th or whatever he's named until, September, whenever the season starts. And it'll be interesting to watch.
Yeah, I mean, this is, if nothing else, it's brought a lot of intrigue back to a season that has just been really tough to watch for the last couple months. I mean, this is the next 4 games really could determine a lot about the future of this entire organization. And it feels like the first shoe to drop was saying Jalen Hurts is a starter.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. I know this is kind of, and I know we didn't really write this down on the script, and we've talked about Howie a lot, but the more I think about it, the more I think that that Jeff Lurie might make a change there. Whether it's I don't think he'll really fire him. I don't think he would do that. But the notion of reassigning him and taking some of his responsibilities and giving them to someone else, I don't know if Howie would be, would accept that. I think he loves the draft. I think it's his favorite part of the job. I mean, you've been in those pressers with him. I mean, he just lights up talking about it, and he loves the draft. I mean, he's on a high when you talk to him at the draft after he picks players, and just the whole process of it and the trades and the decisions. I mean, he loves it. So I don't know if he'd want to be a guy that just sits in an office and does salary cap stuff and writes contracts. I don't think that stuff really appeals to him. I don't know, but I do know that Jeff Lurie's a smart guy, and when you look at the talent level that Howie's brought in here, it's lacking. And it's a pretty big body of work there that Howie has over the last several years that's deficient. I don't know how you look at that and say, I want to give this guy another year, especially if they're picking it, if you have a 4, 5, 6, 7 pick in the draft, that's a franchise defining pick right there. Now those picks are easier certainly than, who you're picking at 53. But the more I think about it, the more I don't know. What's your thought on that? Do you think Howie's in a little trouble at this point?
He should be.
Yeah. He should
be. If you're looking at it logically, yeah.
But just a sense that he's untouchable.
Yeah, I think there's still that sense. I still kind of feel that because there's no one closer to Jeffrey Lurie than Howie Roseman in that building. But I still go back to Joe Banner, and there was no one closer to Jeffrey than Joe Banner, and he didn't have a leash that was long enough to last his whole career.
But that was really that was really Howie or Joe. And there's no
Howie.
Yeah, there's no Howie now. It's just Howie, and there's no, it's not like Andy Weidel or Howie. I mean, it's like it's either Howie or not Howie. So there's not that palace intrigue. So it's to me, it's not that the political thing. There was a lot of politics going on, and Joe and Howie weren't going to both be here. So without that, it becomes a different equation. I just don't know. Common sense and again, and I know people love to get on Howie, and he really did. I mean, he really did do a good job here. to put that 2017 team together. And but it's clear that over the long term, he's just not the guy to build this roster, and we've seen that. It's time. I just don't know if Jeffrey Lurie is going to see what we see.
Yeah, and it's hard because, the evidence is pretty black and white. It really is. There's just not enough talent. And the way they've tried to build teams hasn't been effective. So, yeah, it's pretty clear to me that they at least need someone in here different on the personnel side to help with these picks. And my confidence level that it's going to happen, though, isn't as high as it probably should be.
I'm starting to think it's going to happen. There's got to be a point where Jeffrey's loyalty to Howie versus looking at the roster and Jeff's a smart guy and just seeing what he has. There's got to be a certain point where that overrides the loyalty. I just don't know when that point will be, but the more I think about it, the more I think, he might be there now.
Yeah, and if not now, then when?
Yeah.
This team is bottoming out. And we'll see. We'll see what happens these last 4 games with Jalen Hurts. I'm excited. It's if nothing else, it's a reason to watch on Sunday because watching Carson Wentz out there was getting pretty difficult to do. Yeah,
it was hard. And, I like Carson and I'm not going to say I don't feel bad for him. But it was you got to the point where it was like you just couldn't watch it. It was like it was just like a train wreck. And I thought about that when the word came down this afternoon that Hurts was going to start. I was like, all right, I'm looking forward to going to see the game Sunday.
Yeah.
And it's a really tough. It's kind of like when Donovan got benched in 2008 and Kevin Cobb came in at halftime. That the Ravens had the top defense in the league. That was a really tough ask. They were at the height of their, Ray Lewis and Ed Reed and that whole group, and it showed. So this is really similar. We think of the Saints as this offensive team because of Breeze, but that's a hell of a defense. And
they get after it. Yeah,
they do, and he's going to see things he's never seen. And very interested to see how he does.
If you enjoy the Eagle Eye podcast, do us a favor, rate and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. We always appreciate that. We'll be back with you later in the week to kind of dive into this Saints matchup. We'll obviously talk more Jalen Hurts, more Carson Wentz, but we'll do that on another day. For Reuben, I'm Dave. We'll talk to you guys soon.